makes this round different? Why is 2022 any different than 2018, 2009, 2005, when you were not running? What makes this round any different?
Every day is different. It's not only about elections, it's about a way of life. And if I've decided to run, and not only to run for election, but to engage and to commit to my political convictions, it's because I believe that there is a way of life that Lebanon is losing, and Lebanon is committed to, that we're losing every day. So it's true that the institutions and the system from inside are not only corrupted, but are completely disrupted. And it's not working the right way. Governance is very, very bad. The legal aspect and the legal behavior of all the institutions are not well synchronized. And above all, there is a big threat that is always threatening each decision that any of these institutions is willing to take, which is the arms of Hezbollah. So for all these reasons, I believe that today the institutions are not the right way and the right place to really express yourself, but it's a mean to reach our endless goal.
You know, I'm going to interrupt just for a moment, because you've said something that hits home for me, which is you're already addressing such a fundamental problem to the way the system operates. And Hezbollah is probably the biggest obstacle to reform. And I think this is a shared opinion we have. I don't know if it's shared across the political spectrum. It's not. But I think that's a foundation we can agree on. I'm not sure what someone like you today, with that intention, which is to try to fix that problem, I'm not sure how someone in your shoes can actually fix that problem. And I'll give an analogy. We're entering a phase of deep, immense pain on the economic front, a political paralysis which is unthinkable, institutional failure, poverty. All those issues which are key are so difficult to fix, but those are the issues that can probably be fixed on a local level. Hezbollah is not a local story.
Yes, it's true, but effectively and practically, all what you've just mentioned is directly linked to the fact that our sovereignty is missing, and that our sovereignty is the victim of a hostage party, or a party that is taking Lebanon into hostage. Like, for example, if I take the tourism, which is the main sector that Lebanon has established itself to bring money in and to grow and to be known for. If we take the tourism, our main source of tourism was the Gulf countries, the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, etc. So when Hezbollah start insulting and attacking and in a very heavy way the Gulf monarchies and all these countries, all the Arab countries, and these Arab countries and the Gulf has stopped sending their people and tourism to Lebanon. So we are paying today the price of a direct threat that is Hezbollah on our tourism sector.
Right.
If we take another sector, let's take the agriculture. Okay, you'll tell me what is the danger of Hezbollah on the agriculture. But today, also, the Gulf countries were the first importers of Lebanese agriculture product. After having intercepted 3 or 4 cargoes of Lebanese fruits that contained Captagon and drugs, they stopped all the connection and all the import of Lebanese product. Today, the Lebanese product and the Lebanese agriculture are completely lost, and they don't know what to do with their product because the Lebanese market cannot hold the Lebanese product by itself. We need to export our Lebanese product, and specifically to survive and to bring money in. Same thing for any other sector, and specifically all our economical sector. I can take, for example, the manufacturers, the tourism, the commercial, or even the retail shops. Today, when you have a shop that bring or import product with taxes, with customs, with all type of he pays full price for electricity, etc. So the product costs X.
Yeah.
When if you go to any Hezbollah's retail shop, you will find the same product at X divided by 2.
Right.
Because they don't pay electricity, they don't pay customs, they don't pay. So how can you compete on this? You cannot. I just want to mention one last issue. Let's say take the electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody says, okay, what is the problem of solving the electricity problem in Lebanon? It's not a Hezbollah problem. Yes, it is. It is a Hezbollah problem because today Hezbollah benefits from the electricity and they don't pay electricity. Hezbollah benefits today and had benefits for the last at least, let's say, 5 to 6 years from importing fuel for the electricity and exporting it to Syria and benefiting from a fresh dollar import because they were doing contraband to Syria. And moreover, one of the major issue that everybody is telling Lebanon to do is to privatize the electricity system and the electricity manufacture, distribution, and all the sector. Hezbollah is the one that is completely forbidding such privatization. And the most effective example is that in 2002, there was a law that has been published in order to create an authority, which is the Electrical General Authority, in order to manage this sector, that has never been executed because Hezbollah doesn't want it. So Hezbollah is controlling every single sector in Lebanon and has a negative impact on each one of them. So we cannot build a free economical system, a system based on liberalism, a system based on privatization, on private sectors, etc., which was the core vibe of Lebanon and the core basis of the Lebanese economy. We cannot survive if we are destroying, or the state or Hezbollah is destroying every and single sector of this Lebanese economy, which is based on private sector and on liberalism.
The core issue that you want to fix, that I think of as so fundamental to recovery, I don't think you have it, or I have it, or anyone in this country has the tools necessary. And the reason I'm approaching this in such a bleak way is because both of us were in our early 40s. I think you're just 40 at the moment, right?
Exactly.
I'm 40 as well. So we're literally just started the decade. We've been in a country that has been managed the same way since April 13, 1975, meaning there are problems that are beyond the state's control, and it's a fundamental issue that locals can't solve, even when they try. And let me then go down a bit of a personal road. This is the tragedy both of us share. Even though it was not Hezbollah in the early 1980s, it's the same problem that removed someone like Bachir Gemayel from our history. It's the same story that impacted my father. And here we are, still trying to find a local solution to the problems that are not local. Now, this is where my question comes in. Is there any advantage in suggesting a policy that could actually end this nightmare beyond pointing at it, which I think in particular Kataeb has done very successfully, and that it hones in on the story and it actually makes it a very important story? But is there anything that can be offered in how to deal with it on a local level? Because I don't know what can be done. You're entering parliament, let's assume you win. and you bring the case to parliament. I don't know if that translates to impacting Hezbollah 1%.
It's not about only impacting Hezbollah. We're not talking about impacting Hezbollah. I think today we're talking on the eve of April 13, the start of the war. And what I've been told and what I've read all along since my early years and when I was in university and then later on, and my true understanding of the Lebanese problem is that it's not concerning a dysfunction in the institution that led to the war. It's not something that was and I really don't go this way, and I really don't approve this approach, which is to say that the Lebanese war was a war between the Christian and the Muslim. It's not true.
I agree.
I believe that the Lebanese war has started between all the Lebanese, and the Palestinians, because of the Palestinians who were armed and who was defending their territory from Lebanon, and we give them this authority to fight for it, etc. I don't want to go there, but what I'm saying is that the problem of Lebanon was and will always be the will of each of the surrounding countries to come and eat and have an authority to say in this little small country, like probably today the Russians are doing in Ukraine, or what some like China is doing in Taiwan or whatever. So Lebanon is probably paying the price of its tiny size and its over ego of the countries that are around it. So just to put things in perspective, today we're fighting the same problem. The only difference is that the country that is willing to take part of Lebanon and to take Lebanon as hostage is Iran. And the executors are Lebanese people vested in with an Iranian uniform.
But let's say that in a way you're focusing on what I think is the primary obstacle, which is getting Iran to reconsider its interests in Lebanon. Does Kataeb
not only Iran, all the countries. When Rafi al-Hariri was assassinated in 2005, the Iranian wasn't influenced didn't had the same influence they have starting 2006, but it was the Syrian influence at that time, and they were the one governing and saying you have to do this, you have to do that.
Yeah, but that's actually my point. So that's actually exactly what I'm talking about. March 14, which is what I think you're referring to, this national demand for sovereignty did not yield sovereignty. And it's not the protesters' fault. Or for that matter, it's not the political parties that are to blame. That problem was beyond their control. That's why I'm trying to understand what makes this round different on a local level. So in other words, does Kataeb, and I'm asking you as a member of Kataeb, not as the voice of Kataeb, but from somebody who's in the party, probably one of the more important names in the party, is there an actual policy on how to deal with Iran? Or something that is not just, this is a problem, that we have a solution to it?
Yes, sure. And this was the second part.
Oh, sorry.
No, no.
Sorry.
No, because
both of us are tired.
No, I'll tell you. Why I went back to history, just to say that during this 40 years or 50 years of our existence, me and you in this country, and probably 100 years since the creation of Lebanon. Lebanon is based on two main things: way of life and communities. This is Lebanon. And this is what makes that Lebanon has grow the way it's growing, because we all have the same way of life and we share each one a certain belonging to a certain community. Today, the problem is that during this 100 year or during this few last years, let's say the last few decades, we understood very well that each community, each religion has its own aspiration, has its own problems, has its own thoughts about how it wants to live in Lebanon. And the real problem was an equilibrium of power that never existed effectively. And we are constantly in a fight of demography, of power, and in a struggle of imposing to the other a way of life. So today, what I really believe is that if we want to build a strong nation and if we want to build a strong country with a real belonging, it's not about just eliminating or canceling the fact that there is religion or not, because the problem will remain underlying. What we really need to do is to create a real, first, belonging, but more than belonging, an equilibrium of power and of interest in the country. Like Hezbollah today, in the past, it was a problem probably between the Sunnis and the Christian. And then after it became a problem between the Sunnis and the Shia. And today it's a problem between the Shia and all the other Lebanese. So,
Nadim, I'm going to interrupt. Yeah. I'll take liberty in being able to interrupt you for one key issue.
No, sure.
There's something in the way you're describing it that resonates, in that I agree sectarianism in itself is not a bad thing. Meaning Lebanese are allowed to express themselves as they wish. Power sharing in itself is not a bad idea. It needs to be reformed.
Exactly.
And I think that's the journey that both of us dream of. But I disagree on one thing. The fundamental issue which prevents those things from happening, from us living in a fairly normal environment, is the issue that no political party has an answer to. And that's why I'm trying to understand. There's local outrage against Hezbollah at a degree that's unthinkable. You go back a few years ago, it's hard to imagine this much criticism and this much condemnation of what Hezbollah has done. But the answers are as vague as they've been since 2005. And the few people that tried to find a diplomatic path from Lebanon were killed. So what is the local capability? Because you're eloquently pinpointing at something that prevents us from getting there, but I would say the same thing to any party that offers condemnation of Hezbollah. They don't have an answer.
It's not only about condemning Hezbollah. It's just why we're condemning Hezbollah. It's because Hezbollah is acting in a very forcing way. Like, I don't have problem to sit on a table with Hezbollah and discuss with them its challenges, its thoughts about Lebanon, its thoughts about how to live with other communities. I don't have any problem. I can discuss with him. We can find common ground. And I'm sure specifically between the Maronites and the Shia in Lebanon, we have several cultural common aspects. We all live in the mountain. We used to live from the soil. We used to be agriculture by nature, etc., etc. Probably more than the commercial side between the Orthodox and the Sunnis. No, if you want to go this way,
that's the actual Lebanese
way to think things. No, I'm talking very seriously. But the problem is today that if Hezbollah wants to consider itself the representative of the Shia and put arms on the table and say, okay, it's either my way or the highway. I'm sorry to say, we cannot agree on this. Lebanon has grown during the last 100 years in very. It's true that we went through war, and we cannot deny it. But we went also through constructive ability to reunite. And I remember very, very much the first time I probably. Went on the ground with people that I would have never thought I would be gathering with. After the assassination of Rafi al-Hariri, I went to the Darih. I went to to where he was to his grave, and I said, from the 14th of September martyr, which is my father, who was assassinated on the 14th of September, to the 14th of September. To the 14th of February martyrs, which is Rafi al-Hariri. And there, I really discovered that I didn't even had to speak with someone. We completely understand ourselves that we were here in the same pot, in the same square, defending the same values, defending the same objective, which is sovereignty, freedom, liberty, justice. We were requesting for justice at that time, and we didn't even had to speak. And I just want to tell you something. Since that moment until today, we never really discussed.
That's the calibration. Sorry, let me just do that really quickly. We're good?
Yeah.
All right. That's perfect. No one in the 4 years has done it. Finally, someone else does it for me. Nadim, that was perfect. I've been waiting for this moment. Somebody actually does it. Yeah, I'll use yours. I will only push one step further. There's a lot of other things I want to talk about, but I insist on something, that the way a lot of Lebanese in your shoes and not running, from the protester to the politician, they all dream of something, yet the answers I just don't think are here. And that's why I try to explore what a policy could be from within Parliament against this problem.
It's not about policy, Ronnie. It's really not about policy. It's about the way you deal with things. Sometimes you go home if you fall in love. Okay, if you fall in love, it's not about policy. It's not about a regulation. It's not about putting a bill and saying, okay, I'm gonna. No, it's about a feeling. We need to create a real feeling. This is why I was telling you what happened with Rafi al-Hariri. I'm talking about myself. Mm-hmm. I would have never considered. I would have never imagined that I would go there and be so much welcomed. By everybody, from the Druze, from the Muslims, from the Sunnis, from everybody who was there. There was a kind of obstacle between these communities, and we were fed by the Syrian regime and the Syrian regime that if we're gonna withdraw from Lebanon, you will see a new war will explode, a new war will hit you, that you will be eaten by the Sunnis, etc. And then at the end, we felt that they left. And we lived very well. And this is why I'm telling today, if we want to go this way, we need to really engage true talks about our obstacle, about our...
Can I float an idea?
Yes.
I'm sorry to persist, but this is the rare opportunity I have. Is there any position regarding a new chapter with Iran?
Probably.
Okay, so let's say
yes.
Let's say Kataeb.
We're not totally against Iran or Syria or whatever, but we want Iran and Syria to understand that we are an independent country.
But let's say you're in Parliament. Let's say you win, and the chances are you're going to win. What does that translate into? Meaning, do you advocate for a diplomatic relationship with Iran that's different? I'm trying to see actual policy. Aside from what the obvious problems are, what can be done on a local level? Because I'm quite frustrated with there being no momentum outside to heal this problem within Lebanon. It doesn't seem like the region is helping Lebanon in that sense. The international appetite to bring this up when talking to Iran is not there. So is there a local alternative to finding some way to end this problem here? I can imagine something, and you tell me if this is the way you see it. Calling for it, knowing that not much can be done. And I sense it's not Kataeb, obviously. You go down the highway today, every single billboard at some point is either the Uwait promising sovereignty or the Kataeb actually insisting on it. But in my mind, these two slogans have been with me most of my life. Never happened from within.
This is why I was telling you, I started my talk by saying that I don't really believe that change can come from inside.
Oh, and so you do? Okay.
I totally agree.
Oh, I see. So you
and this is one of the points where I was considering not to run for this mandate, because I believe that no change can be done from the inside.
Okay.
But if I'm doing it today, and if I have decided to do it, and to run again, it's just for one single reason. I'm not going there to be elected member of parliament or to be sitting on a chair in the parliament. I'm just saying that my constituency, I'm a flag holder for my constituency to vote and to plebiscite a certain way of life and a certain direction that we want to go in Lebanon. So you have two choices. It's either you continue down through the devil, like Michel Aoun have told us, or you're gonna stand strong and say, no, this is not the way of life we want. We want a true way of life, of liberalism, of opening up to the world, to have back our economy as strong as it was. And this is, I'm just a flag holder, and I'm just holding that flag. So I represent the values and the principle that my constituency wants to vote for.
So is this in a way less, now permit me to suggest this, you tell me if you don't agree, less sovereignty, more societal resistance?
Of course.
I see. So you're able, I appreciate that you're able to admit that there are answers abroad that are not available, and that change regarding at least Hezbollah has to happen on a regional level, and that you're able to also hone in on something which is the way you see Lebanon, and that is your cause at the moment.
Of course, and I see, and if we want to go further, I see today that Lebanon has a lot to do in a diplomatic way, not only not only for Hezbollah and Iran and Syria, etc. But, like, for example, why wouldn't we consider a diplomatic way to solve our problem, our border problem with Israel? Why? Why don't we consider a diplomatic way to solve our problem with Syria on Sheba? Why don't we consider our problem a diplomatic issue to solve all our problem with all our neighbors?
But that's the point. That's what I agree with. That is what gets Lebanese who stick their heads up either kicked out or eliminated. What you're just talking about right now is exactly what I believe is the fundamental problem. Lebanese cannot address those fundamental issues.
Why?
In my mind, and I don't know if, in my mind, 1970 and the build up to 1975.
Let's say today, why today they cannot address such issues?
The reasons that tore Lebanon apart are still here, and those prevent sovereignty from happening. It's the capability of one or more groups to dictate the state's policies. In our case today, it's Hezbollah. It wasn't always Hezbollah.
Yeah, it wasn't always Hezbollah, but it was always the people that were holding arms and threatening the Lebanese population.
Absolutely.
And this is why I was telling you, the Palestinians' problem, the Syrian problem, Hezbollah's problem today is not only a matter of Lebanon's problem. It's a matter that they want to dictate you by force the way you want to live. And this is not what we want.
So you're, in a way, providing some symbolic resistance on a societal level within Parliament. In a way, it's almost a reminder.
Of course.
Oh, I see.
I think that today our resistance is not only by mean of the institution, the legal and the official institution and democratical institution. We cannot leave democracy, and this is why I'm being candidate, because we cannot leave democracy aside and we cannot leave the institution aside.
Yeah.
But the real work has to be done somewhere else.
I appreciate that. You're doing something which is rare. You're admitting that there's real work beyond a parliamentarian's capabilities.
This is why I resign after the explosion of the Beirut port.
Yeah.
Because at that moment I really understand, and I saw it in front of my eyes, that we are completely incompetent by resolving our problem in this way. And the governance of the institution, of the Lebanese institution, doesn't give you the means to solve your problem or to reach a solution. So we need to find it somewhere else.
I appreciate this.
But this doesn't mean that we stop politics or diplomatics area.
What I would love to see, and again, I'm an outsider to this story, I would love to see a group like Kataeb make that clearer and how to address the outside story. Because no party in Lebanon, I think, has actually tried to bridge that. of course, it's not just Kataeb, but any group that has honed in on the story, I wish that there was more to offer and what could be done outside. Because that could still be a Lebanese angle. It doesn't have to be within Lebanon. And it could offer other countries with leverage at least an understanding of what keeps Lebanon paralyzed. Now, I'm going to jump from the very difficult Hezbollah story to your own recent journey. And I'm going to ask you something a bit sensitive. When you're running now from a very old and proud party that has been within Lebanon's societal and political fabric pre-independence, one of the oldest parties in Lebanon, if not the oldest, from a name that is associated with Lebanon. I mean, there's no breaking Bachir Gemayel with Lebanon. They go one and the same. The intimacy is real, and the pursuit is obvious, and it's generational. Someone like you, who's 40, finding an audience that has no tolerance for someone like you. And I don't necessarily subscribe to this. It's not something that I think, but I feel it. I know it's real, and I hear it all the time. An impatience for any name that has been involved in Lebanese politics. An impatience for any party that existed pre-October 17. There's a rigidness and perhaps even a stubbornness when talking to anyone that was involved in politics pre-October 17. I think it's a bit extreme, but I'd like to see what you think in terms of trying to appeal to a younger generation that only thinks of these names as problematic. And that could be on a political party name, it could be a family name, it could even be an individual that has served already, and you've been an MP before. So as much as you can say, and I think this has been, in a way, Kataeb's struggle since October 17, trying to be fully reformist party among protesters, yet you still have this conversation happening, and it's almost an endless debate. So what you could offer on from your side, as somebody who sees that happening and you're still running?
It's something that I've always asked myself. If you stay at home, I would have never been touched by anything like this. But I would have lost my option and opportunity to fight for a cause I believe in. So yes, engagement, burn. If you play with fire, you're gonna burn your fingers. It's normal. Or you cannot do something without getting dirty. If not dirty in the wrong way, but if you're working at home, or if you want to change your salon, or if you want to paint your home in a new way, you cannot do it if you don't get dirty. So I believe that what we do is obviously will please some people and will not please others. And this is why elections happen, and this is why elections happen every 4 years, because you need to confirm this every 4 years, or etc. So my only answer to this is I can understand that people want new people that has never been tested, has never been trained, or has nothing, or they don't have the knowledge of parliament, institution, public affairs, public works, etc. I can understand this, but at the same time, a majority of people is requesting us to go down and are willing to vote for us, and this is how we're getting elected. And I can assure you today that when I go walk on the street and I see the love of the people and their support, it's something that makes me believe that what we're doing is the right way and it's the correct way.
Do you sense that there's an advantage for someone like you who's been in parliament already? Do you think that offers you some perspective that a Puritan or someone who's brand new doesn't have? And is that a reason to maybe reconsider some partial prejudice towards.
Look, this is why actually we usually work in a party, because in a party we have something that is very important, and which exists in all companies, and especially big company, which is the institutional memory and the institutional continuation. Like today, it's not about changing an institution, all board of institution from one time and kick everybody out and putting new people. No, because you have something that is called the institutional memory, and this is why I believe that the Kataeb party and all the parties probably, but the Kataeb party is bringing new blood to the table, new blood to the parliament, but at the same time preserving the old and the gold, let's say. the old and the gold.
The old gold.
The old gold, yeah, probably. who will
which is hopefully in the central bank.
who will also bring to the table their knowledge, their know-how, their experience, and then probably in the next election or in the next round, we're gonna step away and keep someone that has taken the knowledge, the experience, etc., to continue, etc., and this is the important part. But if you bring someone just because he's new, clean, and you never tested him, you never tried him, you never know what is his political values, just because he used to be successful in something that is not at all related to political affairs, it doesn't mean that he will succeed. And we have a lot of example in Lebanon of people who were very successful in their businesses, and they came to the political side
and couldn't do much.
And not even they couldn't do much. They probably were worse than others because they don't have the political support, the popular support that is needed to stand and to fight and to execute something.
So let me offer an example, because it's funny. Most of the people that associate you with Kataeb or with your late father. I think of you as someone who challenged anti-smoking procedure and was able to succeed for a moment in getting smoking restrictions enacted.
Exactly.
And that made me think of you as someone really I can identify with, because if you're going down that road, you know the burden, you know the immense difficulty on something so small that you tried. It happened within a year maybe that the laws were relaxed, and then within 2 years, not even a year, right?
Not even a year. It was enacted. The bill was passed.
Yes.
The problem was it was never executed because the government at that moment and the Ministry of Tourism, which was the authority that has to implement the law, never did implemented it because they had political considerations.
So there was a window, and it could have been maybe a few days, where you saw restaurants and bars implementing what they thought was going to be a serious fine.
But what I can say today is I go into several restaurants and they have today, probably due to the law or because they understand that it's important to have it, they have a smoking area and a non-smoking area, which is very good.
Absolutely. And I think you in a way, whether intentionally or not, made this a more acceptable situation. But you work very hard on getting something so small passed. It gets barely passed. It's implemented for a few days, maybe seriously, and then less than a year, it's not even in our history anymore. This is the stuff I'm talking about, that a well-intentioned person cannot do much and can try. I'm not saying the effort is not there. Effort is actually noble. But that's why my kind of frustration is every election cycle, the same thing happens. We're going to try from the biggest obstacles to even the smallest ones like this. And you said it, political considerations. That becomes part of the lexicon, the language, and then we let go. We give up. And that's where my frustration comes in really believing that elections contribute that much at the moment, and wanting to see people with good intentions shine rather than end up frustrated and leave politics. And somehow I think of you as someone in the middle. someone who's frustrated, someone who has tried leaving. I mean, I know that you've tried living in Qatar at times. You've lived abroad.
True.
And I know something very important, which I don't think many people know. You have a job aside from politics. You studied law, you're a lawyer. So you could do something else. You're not just doing this because there's nothing else you can do. You can do
of course. I'm not doing it because it's not
this is not
a garbage bin where you have
yes.
to if someone doesn't know what to do, he goes and stay in parliament. No, of course not.
But
I'm doing it by conviction. And I'm leaving a lot aside to come and serve my country. I'm putting a lot aside.
But there's this thing in the middle that you're doing everything you can, and then you're also seeing your home further deteriorate. I think that's something it's almost it's built into the story that the harder we try, the more Lebanon collapses in front of us. And I'm not going to be too bleak here. I want to put things in perspective. Allow me to go a little more sensitive. Any time that I mention that I'm thinking about doing an episode with you, and I've been flirting with the idea, and I know it's an honor that you're doing this when you're campaigning. I know how busy you are. Whenever I suggest this episode and I put it online, the amount of messages I get are incredible. But there's something that I think is so beyond your control that is part of the narrative. They associate you with your father. I think this is natural.
It's normal, I would say. Not natural, but it's normal because the image of Bachir is super strong.
Exactly. And I remember you once saying it, and I hope this is right. He was a puzzle to you until you grew up. That there was a puzzle to the story that you came to terms with. This is a very personal road, and only you would have that understanding. You are his son. But I get it too, that there's an expectation for you to be just like your father. Now, I'm going to be delicate here. Do you think there's an unfair expectation or even an unfair burden on you that you're in 2022 in a very different environment, in a very different place, in a sense, that you're in politics is the only thing that really puts these two stories together? Yeah. But do you think this is an unfair way of addressing the story? Even if sorry, Nadim. Yeah. Even if you look like him, you're his DNA. You are older than him now, when he was president-elect, and that people look at you in a way that's not only looking at you. Is that something that, in a way, is unfair?
I don't know if unfair is the right word, but I would say that specifically in our society, it's normal to compare someone to someone else, and everybody is compared to someone else. And if they don't compare you to your father, they will compare you to your cousin. If they don't compare you to your cousin, they will compare you to your uncle. And if you don't, they will compare in everything. Yeah. If you're a doctor, if you are a lawyer, if you are an engineer, if you are everything, they will always compare you to someone because they do it. Now, everybody has expectation, and you live. Whoever you are, if you're in politics or other, if you're the son of or you're the dad of or ever, everybody has expectation from someone. And it's about a mix of living the expectation of others and imposing your rules, your values, your way of doing things to other at the same time.
I think they look at you and they think of things that they remember that has nothing to do with you.
Yes, probably. Yeah. But some people are disappointed that I don't do like my father, or I'm not like my father, and I can understand them because they are looking for that big hero that is really an amazing guy. Who lived the way he lived his life in the 1975 to 1982. He had an army behind him. He had the power. He had a complete different scenario. Today we're living in another world. And the biggest challenge was for me to accept this and to accept that I'm not my father. I cannot be him. I'm living my way. I'm living my era. I'm living my way of life. And if they don't accept it, it's not my problem anymore. It's their problem. If they want to live in this frustration, they will have to live with it. But I'm not ready to live this frustration of being compared every time to my father, because I am me. It's true, I'm the son of, but I'm also my own. I have my own destiny, and I have my own way of doing things, and I have accepted it. So I hope they will accept it, and I hope that each one will accept this. If they don't want to accept it, this is their problem. It's not me. So they will live in this frustration. I won't.
That is the best way to answer that very loaded question, because you've just delivered something which is very difficult. That you are your own person. You're standing up for what you believe in.
Of course.
You were very young when this tragedy happened. You were 4 months old, if I remember correctly.
I was 4 months old.
4 months old. And there's no reason for you to go down any road other than your own. And I would assume Bachir came to the same conclusion in his own life. He wasn't Pierre, but he did things on his terms.
Exactly.
And probably your children one day will have the same goal in front of them. So I really respect that. And that's why I appreciate your...
And just to let you know, I'm now the dad of a small little girl.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure I would never impose to her anything in life. And I will let her go her way. If she wants to go into politics, let it be. It will be her choice. If she wants to be a model, let her be her choice. If she wants to be an engineer and she wants to go and discover the moon, it will be her choice. And I will let her leave this path. It will be her choice, and I will be super supportive. I cannot impose to her anything, like I don't accept that anyone imposed to me anything. And if I have decided to do politics because I believe in my country and I believe that I have a message and I have an objective to reach, and this is why I'm doing politics. I'm not doing politics because I'm the son of Bachir only. Being the son of Bachir have gave me a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of burdens.
Yeah.
So you need to be up to the opportunities and up to the burden. If no, both will break you.
I really appreciate you even opening up this part of your life, because there are different people, different stories. And I think it's safe to say, because you even hinted at it already, Bachir is an icon. And that, in a way, you can't really replicate that. As hard as you try, it won't happen. And you have to find your own footing in life. I knew my father much better, obviously. So he became a friend in life more than a father. But I get hints of this sometimes. I was at Spinney's last night. Somebody walked up to me and insisted I run for elections. I don't speak the language correctly. I would not appeal to maybe 5 people. And if I did appeal, it's the 5 I don't trust. And it's not for me. And add to that, he was not an MP. But there's an assumption. Politics, you should follow the footsteps. And there's an insistence sometimes. It's your duty. And I don't think that's the case. I think you can find your own story. And if it flirts with politics, that's fine. If it's going into parliament, that's fine as well. But I agree with you that you need to come to your own conclusions in life. And I respect you for saying that. It means a lot to me. I want to wrap up the episode with something that is, I think, also beyond your control. It's a story that predates you. It's the legacy of Kataeb today, and how people look at Kataeb right now, and maybe even how you do. We're getting a bit older, so maybe our perspective allows us to have some maneuvering space when we talk about these parties. But there's a younger generation that thinks of this party and has maybe been told about this party in a way that's not entirely true. And there are, in a way, episodes of the party that become the story. And I asked Nadim Gemayel the same sort of terrain, in that it's been 40 years, people still talk about Sabra Shatila. There's still discussions about the militia days, about battles that took place, about many Lebanese that were killed, and Palestinians that died as well. And you fast forward, you have a young Nadim Gemayel who was not even around. Or if he was a child. He's not involved in those years. A young Nadim Gemayel. You have a very young base in Kataeb today that looks more like a liberal party in other countries rather than an old dinosaur party. But still, there's this assumption that Kataeb did wrong. Words that are associated with pain, agony, and murder and tragedy, in particular Sabra Shatila. And the party is still around. And it's positioned itself as a reformist party, allying with October 17 parties. So I think the journey is quite remarkable. But is there anything you can say to trying to put that chapter in perspective? That the Civil War years are real, but that's not Kataeb's story. The story is much bigger. And maybe how you come to terms with it, because you're not a militiaman. You're not involved in any Civil War battle, yet there's that stigma that comes with it.
Look, it's about an image that we have also. Of course, today when you speak about the Kataeb, first thing that comes to mind was they are fighters. They were probably, people think that the Kataeb were born in 1975.
Right, yeah.
But at the end, it's about how you write your history and how you explain it to others, and the objective why you were fighting at that moment, etc. And I believe that today we're working a lot, not only to appear as liberal and as modern and democratic, etc., but also we're working to make the young understand what are the values of Lebanon and how we can get together, to work together to build the best out of the future together. And today, probably the perception of the Kataeb is military, because the gold age of the Kataeb, especially the gold age of Bashir, was a military. Everybody knows Bashir, my father, or the hero of the icon, as a military guy who was fighting, etc. So of course they still remain this picture. They still have this picture, and until today, I think all the parties has not yet come to an image or to an achievement that could cover or that could balance this image of the past. One of the images they had was the 14 March image, and the one with Bachir Gemayel, where Pierre was really heading the party towards something new, to a bigger cause where everybody was allied, between Saad al-Hariri, Bachir Gemayel, Gibran Twaini, the Ishtirakiyya, the PNS, the PSP, everybody was like in a dynamic where there is something new happening to the country. And this is the only part, I believe, that had covered the past, because the value, the principle, the goals they were all going to was much bigger than everything that was previously made. And this is the part of history I'm talking about, 2005, 2006. This is the part of history that could have covered all the rest.
Right. So you saw that as almost turning the page in a way. Of Kataeb as well.
Not only turning the page, you were writing a new page in Lebanon history. It's not only about the Kataeb history.
Yeah.
The Kataeb were writing the history of Lebanon in 1975, 1982, because they were defending Lebanon, and then this is what remained. In the book of Lebanon, they wrote a lot in the books of Kataeb, but it never covered the page of Lebanon. So after 2005, when we reunited all together, Muslims, Christian, Druze, etc., when they reunited all together, they were writing together a new page of the Lebanese history, and this is why it covered up. Today, unfortunately today, I don't know if I can say this or no, but every party is writing his own history not writing together the history of Lebanon. And this is why I believe that reuniting everybody around a single and identical goal, an identical cause, an identical objective would be the real way of writing and drafting a new page of Lebanon history. And this is where we'll be imposing our values, our principles, our values of democracy, freedom, justice, all these values that we have been fighting for all together separately, each one in his own book. We have to gather it all together in one book, which is the Lebanese book.
Let's assume, and I'll take what you just said and I'll fast forward post-May. Let's assume that you are in parliament. Kataeb, let's say, does better this year than it did in 2018. A few additional MPs are in parliament. And let's assume that even some of the October 17, a handful, make it in. I'm trying to be optimistic here. Including the independents that have allied themselves with this, meaning Named Frem or Michel Mawad, the crowd that I think is familiar to a degree. Let's say that there's a small bloc in parliament that sees Lebanon the way you do. The story you just said, let's say it's shared among a small bloc. What does that bloc look like in terms of applying pressure to the usual suspects? Does it look like a very small, watered-down version of March 14? Or is it something entirely different? That it's meant to apply pressure?
Look, first, I believe that few people can stand for big causes, and few people can change a big majority. And today, it's not about numbers. We're not in a power, in a balance of power. To say that if we are more or less, or we have a majority or a minority, we should have the determination of willing to change, and this determination will give us the power to effectively not impose but drive the way we want it to be,
But is the message targeting the regime parties? And maybe the word is not correct here, but the usual parties that are going to enter parliament. Is that small bloc meant to just signal where the problems are, more than actually being able to do?
No, we will engage each problem. Of course, we'll engage each problem. We'll try to solve each problem. We'll put things on the table.
Yeah.
We'll try to convince others. We have a lot to do. I think it's not only about. I think in Parliament, if I have one experience, is lobbying is much more important than the real
lobbying.
Lobbying, of course, lobbying.
Yeah,
lobbying is very important in Parliament, and you can, believe me, it can change a lot of opinions in big parties or in small parties.
And sorry, lobbying from which side? From the population to parliament, or from the other way?
All way around. Like you have to talk to the people to make them understand what are the challenges and what are the difficulties and what are the opportunities for them. Because sometimes people doesn't see the opportunities they have in some bills that are going to be passed. Like, for example, let's take the example you were talking about, the one of the smoking ban.
Yeah.
At the beginning, the restaurants were considering that we were fighting the restaurant and we want to close all the restaurants. And then I understand that it was an opportunity for them to bring more people, to have people that doesn't want to go smoke in a restaurant, but and they understand it. And this is why I was telling you they apply it by themselves, creating two areas in a restaurant, smoking and non-smoking, because some people didn't want to bring their kids to a restaurant where everybody were smoking. So we show them the opportunity, the commercial and the business opportunity that they can have in such things, etc., etc. We have created. Each situation has opportunities, and you need to convince people. You need to convince the other side. You need to talk to small, probably members of a party who will delegate and who will go and promote your idea in their big blocks, etc., etc. This, if we're talking about social affairs, much more than
the
big political one.
But that's interesting. I didn't know, you know, I like your way you're explaining, meaning that trying to offer incentives which are not maybe immediately obvious. And that, I like the word lobbying. So you see your role in that world again, meaning that it's going to be, it's where you last tried in Parliament. You're picking up from where you left off.
Yes, but with a lot of change. I understand a lot of things, being member of Parliament for the last 15 years, probably 13 years. I have understand a lot of things. I have evolved a lot. I have understand the challenges, the difficulties, the opportunities too. And I think this is where I'm gonna start my mandate on the 16th of May.
I'll wrap it up with one final question. This is something that I'd really like your opinion on, because it seems like it's happening and it's something that may not be good for the country. Less to do with Parliament and more to do with Baabda. If I had to put money down, I'm going to bet that the next two presidents of this country are going to be Gibran Bassil and Sleiman Frangieh. Which order they appear is hard for me to determine right now. It may not be obvious at the moment, but we're looking at two parties that represent two problems. One, a very deep strategic alliance with Hezbollah that has not ended, that may be with it for the time being. The other, a deep strategic alliance with the Syrian regime that has not shaken, and perhaps both flirt with both at different times. But that's my reading of the room, that Lebanon is entering a very difficult stretch where players are either too pro-Syrian or too pro-Iranian, and that doesn't mean they always get along either, and we've seen that in Lebanon's history. You as an MP in a party that wants neither side, that wants a Lebanon that is not dealing with a Syrian regime looking to re-enter or an Iranian regime that has hijacked the system. How do you read the coming years when Kataeb is one of the smaller parties that does not have the influence to enter Baabda, has some influence in Parliament, some shared cause among October 17, but the footprint is not so deep at the moment?
Look, the fact that you mentioned this is very has a lot of meaning. It's very meaningful. For one reason, is that a lot of Lebanese think like you, and this is due to the fact that the Lebanese people has decided to abandon their fight for freedom and their fight for the choice of life they want. By choosing Michel Aoun president in 2016, we've took the country the wrong way, and this is where we are today. And I believe that the only way to solve this issue is to decide to take Lebanon the other way around, and to change Lebanon from its east direction to the west direction. And this can only be done by a clear decision and will of the Lebanese people in 2015, in the election, in May 15,
yes,
to change and to go in a different way.
But that's Parliament. And we can already see that the numbers are not going to be that big when it comes to the opposition bloc.
It's not about being big or not. In Lebanon, it's not only about numbers. It's about, and we saw it last time, it's about the type of alliances. Once we decide to put our ego aside and put our interest, our individual interest aside, I can assure you that no Michel Aoun could have come, and Gibran Bassil and Sleiman Frangieh will never make it if we put our egos aside and we put our personal interest aside and we unify in a goal that we will decide our own direction, and specifically to go west, no more going east.
Do you see that happening though? But because I know that you
I see this happening if we are able to overcome our differences. And I'm specifically talking about the Christians and then all the rest. Because it will be a Christian decision first. If the Christian will agree not to bring Gibran Bassil, or it's not only about agreeing on Gibran Bassil or Sulaim al-Fanji. For me, it's exactly the same. It's not about Syria or Hezbollah. It's one direction. Is a new Venezuela, is the direction of North Korea, it's the direction of Cuba. It's the same direction for me. It's not about choosing Gibran Bassil or Sulaim al-Fanji. It's about the decision of which way we want to take Lebanon. And this is not about personal individualistic. If the fact that one of the candidates will say it's either me or Gibran Bassil, this cannot be the case. This will make us reach a point where it will be Gibran Bassil winning or Sulaim al-Fanji, or this point. We have to agree all together to the best interest of Lebanon, and then we can go fight whoever we want.
I will ask one more on this subject. Does that require also regional change? Just the way you were describing the other issues, that some things are beyond our control. Is that also part of it?
I believe that our will and our engagement will bring to the table the international community. It's us. It's how we make the international community feel and understand the situation that will lead the international community to move in a sense or another.
You know, there's something, Nadim, when talking to you, I appreciate a few ways you explain the answer, and you're not shy of admitting constraints, but you also hold a deep reservoir of optimism, which I didn't expect. And I'm glad you have it, because that's, I think, what you should have when you're trying to maintain a political career in this country. So I'm glad you offer a light, if you will, at the end of this tunnel. And something else. You're able to carefully focus in on what you think is a societal issue, and you're working to hold on to something that you think is disappearing. And you're also able to talk about something which is very difficult for me, which is limited control, limited power, but you're able to accept it, and the fight is there with or without burden, with or without other political parties and how they operate, and with or without the international community, you'd still be doing this.
Of course. You know why? Because I want to get back to 13 April. When the war started, and this is a knowledge that we have learned from probably not the war, but the way our fathers and grandfather have survived. At that moment, they didn't have the means to fight the Palestinians, who were very well trained, very well armed, etc. And we have, and this is why I was telling you, the balance of power is not the important point here. It's our perseverance and our engagement, our will to fight and to stand. And this is where my optimism come from.
Yeah.
It's about the will of a people, and this will, I'm sure, can change a lot of things. It's not about only numbers. It's not about the equilibrium of power. It's about much more than this.
You know, but I think it's both. It's what tore Lebanon's sovereignty apart, having an external militia create a monster in this country. And also the only reason Kataeb trained itself into becoming a militia was because of that problem in Lebanon.
Of course.
Kataeb did not naturally become a militia. That issue has not been fixed properly. We're still in that world in 2022. But I should be less pessimistic on what you're talking about, which is the will to have a population not give up and still make their case heard, whether it's through parliament or whether it's through external agreements that are happened at Lebanon's expense. And in that story is someone like you who's grown up during the Civil War. I have as well. From a very old political party, from a family associated with politics, the son of an icon who's still in Lebanon trying. And I think I'd like it that our children don't have to do this. And I think you mentioned it earlier, you just had a daughter. If she does enter politics one day, I hope she's not entering this country's politics as it is right now. It would be nice to have a normal politics that is not so violent ridden and problematic.
Hopefully we'll prepare the ground for them to do politics different way.
I hope so. I really hope so. And thank you for spending an evening with me while you're campaigning, Nadim. It means a lot. I've only met you a few times.
Thank you, Ronnie.
And I'll say this.
Great pleasure.
As someone who knows you as a normal person, I've seen you out in normal cafes and normal bars that I frequent. And I also saw you during a very difficult time in my life. You sat next to me at my father's funeral, and we talked for a few minutes about how to deal with this kind of tragedy. You offered a few words of wisdom, and then you moved on. And that was my first encounter with you. So it's an honor to do this on a different note, but it's the same pain and same political journey we're both on. It's a very symbolic moment for me. Thank you.
Thanks to you. It was a great pleasure to have this talks with you. It enlightened my thoughts also on several issues, and I hope that you'll continue doing what you're doing, because you're doing it very well. And I hope we'll be able to meet again very, very soon to discuss probably what we'll be doing inside the parliament and what will be and the effective changes that we will have done.
As long as I don't see you smoking in a restaurant, I think we'll be okay. Thanks, Nadim.
Thank you. Thanks to you.